was asked about the
Bro,
situation.
what the fuck? Is this the same guy?
All he stated was,
Oh my gosh. Yo. Bro look like he been going through it, not gonna lie. Bro needs to shape up. Bro. I hope he doing okay. Yo, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another reaction video. We got what really happened to Stetson Bennett. Let's check this out. Yeah, I haven't really heard much about him since he got drafted by the Rams.
Unfortunately for Mr.
Other than
Stetson
he
Bennett
like,
here,
did he get like a DUI or something like that?
I mean, a drastic turn.
Because I'm pretty sure I heard something along those lines with him. Because I think he got arrested for something.
A couple of years ago, there was a quarterback who led his team to not one, but 2 national championships back-to-back. In 2021, he led his team to a come-behind victory over no other than Nick Saban's Alabama. Fast forward time into 2022, he led his team to a double-digit come-behind victory over Ohio State in the semifinal, in which he completely balled out. His team needed him to carry him, and he did just that. He went 23 for 34 with nearly 400 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. He led Georgia on the game-winning touchdown drive against Ohio State, and we know what happened after that. Georgia completely demolished TCU.
TCU didn't even deserve to be in the fucking national championship. What the hell? Freak ass nigga. What the hell? Nigga trying to taste the confetti? What the fuck is this nigga got going on?
He went from a walk-on
Get Nolan Smith back there.
Back-to-back
but what the hell this nigga got going on, bro?
Game. Following his second national championship, this is when he declared for the 2023 NFL Draft. It seemed like things were going great for this guy. However, right after he declared for the NFL Draft, this happened.
What happened?
What are you doing in Dallas, Stetson?
Now, if you couldn't tell what was going down in that video there, long story short, he got arrested. And I know what you're sitting here saying, well, Matt, what did he get arrested for? What did he do? Trust me when I say this, we'll get to all of that a little later in this video, but if you do want a teaser, he was going crazy. I'm going to remind you, this was leading up into the NFL Draft, so you almost had to assume this was going to affect his draft stock. However, despite acting crazy, despite getting arrested, he still got selected in the 4th round by the Los Angeles Rams. But as soon as he joins the Rams, not too long after they drafted him, they remove him from the football team and place him on the non-football illness list. It caught everybody by surprise because we're sitting here thinking, man, what's going on with this guy? What happened? We was left in the dark. He wouldn't talk about it, his family wouldn't talk about it, nor his head coach. The only statement that was ever released was Sean McVay was asked about it, and here's what he stated, quote unquote. I understand you have a job to do, but there are certain things that are a lot bigger and more important. At the beginning of the season, there were some people who thought this was going to be a big deal, and those people turned out to be right. Because you look up, it's the end of the year, and this young man didn't even return back to the team. It had everybody asking the same question. What happened to Stetson Bennett? It's more than a fair question if you got to ask me. He went from the pinnacle of college football, a household name, to now nobody knows where he's at. He's essentially disappeared and fallen off the face of the earth. There's many questions people have been asking about this guy for the past year or so. But however, it all circles back to the one, and I mean the one big question we're going to try to get to the bottom of in today's video. What really happened to Stetson Bennett?
Okay.
Whew. Man, oh man, we got good old Stetson DoorDash Bennett, and come on, man.
DoorDash Bennett is crazy.
We gotta throw it all the way back to where things started.
Okay.
Mr. Stetson Bennett played his high school football for Pierce County High School, located in the state of Georgia, in which he led his team to not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive state championships. How about that?
Okay.
He was a really good high school player. The
Carry that over to college football.
The obvious, he was undersized. In just one season, his senior year, he had 3,724 passing yards with over 500 rushing yards and 40 total touchdowns. Despite putting up those great numbers and winning 3 high school state championships, he was only regarded as a 2-star recruit. If you want the specifics on him, he was ranked as the 2,571st best player in the nation. He only had 4 college offers from Middle Tennessee State, which is MTSU, Mercer, Georgia Southern, and Columbia. Could he have went to one of these schools, and would that have been a great opportunity? Yes, it would have. But you also have to understand and realize, and this is a major part of our story, his dream was to play quarterback at the University of Georgia. He didn't care what it took. He wanted to do that. So he didn't take a scholarship offer, and he decided to walk on at Georgia in 2017. Didn't play there whatsoever, was barely getting snaps in practice, so he decided to transfer.
He took the start job from JT Daniels too, right?
In this one and only season playing JUCO ball, Bennett, he was all right. He had 1,800 passing yards with 16 touchdowns. After this one season of JUCO ball, this was good enough to bump him up to a 3-star recruit in the transfer portal rankings. Originally, and this is crazy because a lot of people didn't know this, he wasn't going to return back to Georgia. He was going to join Louisiana. But here's the kicker with that. Around the same time, there was another quarterback that was playing for Georgia that went by the name of Justin Fields, and he just left to go to Ohio State. Therefore, Georgia needed some more quarterback depth. So what did they do? They offered Bennett a scholarship. He accepted, and he was the backup. As a backup in that 2019 season for Georgia, there's not too much to say. He was 20 for 27, completed 74% of his passes, had 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, but this was in garbage time. It was the following season in 2020 where things started to get interesting. In that 2020 season for Georgia, Bennett started out as a quarterback for Georgia early on. But on October 17th, Georgia had to face one of the best teams in the nation, Alabama. Georgia was a really good team, but the difference maker in this game was no other than quarterback play. Bennett struggled mightily, and I think it's more than fair to say he cost him the game. Was 18 for 40. That's not even 50%.
Damn.
That's abysmal. 269 with 2 touchdowns.
How do you throw 18 of 40 and 3 interceptions, bro? That's insane
3
work.
Costly interceptions.
Mac Jones, Alabama legend.
Game almost 24 for 32, 400 yards with 4 touchdowns, only 1 INT. QBR dang near perfect, 96.9. Bennett caught a lot of slack and a lot of heat for that game, rightfully so.
Yikes.
Didn't play good, and like I stated,
why didn't they bench him though? Bro, why didn't they bench Stetson Bennett after that? After this fucking performance?
As the season continued to progress, though, there was another guy in the locker room that was starting to get healthy. He went by the name of JT Daniels.
Yeah.
Daniels would eventually take over the reins from Stetson Bennett, and he finished the season, and most Georgia fans thought this was going to be their new guy moving forward. Speaking of JT Daniels,
where's he at now?
That guy. We need to make a video on him in the near future. Let me know in the comment section if
is he still in college football?
Here, heading into the 2021 season, it seemed like Bennett's career was all but over. You had JT Daniels returning. He was going to be the starter moving forward unless something crazy happened, and Bennett, he was going to be the backup. Georgia starts out the season with a 10-3 victory over Clemson. That was a defensive slugfest. And then against UAB, Daniels didn't play, which at the time wasn't a major factor because the consensus going around was, oh, yeah, he's just taking a bye week to get healthy for the hard part of the season because UAB, no disrespect, it's not some serious team that Georgia needs to take as a real threat. So Daniels was using this as some time to recover. He did return for the South Carolina game in which he went off. 21 for 31, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns to only 1 INT, QBR right at 97. Georgia then proceeds to cruise past Vanderbilt 62-0, and then they have a top 10 matchup with Arkansas.
And
I
just
remember
shut
this
them
game
out.
just like it was yesterday. Everybody hyping this up, and I knew from the jump it wasn't going to be close. Was Arkansas really a top 10 team at the time? I'm going to leave it up to you guys in the comment section, but for me, it's most certainly up for debate. Here's what I do know, and it's a cold hard fact. Arkansas wasn't even close to Georgia's level. But, I have a really big but, you better believe this, the storyline of this game wasn't Georgia winning and demolishing Arkansas 37-0. The storyline was JT Daniels didn't play. It seemed like this was the remedy for the entirety of JT Daniels' career. He couldn't stay healthy. Kirby Smart has no choice but to roll at Stetson Bennett, and he did a job. He only
threw for 72 yards
in that ball game. As the season continues to progress,
he must have had a dominant run game
Georgia's
there.
just cruising past everybody. Auburn, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, and Tennessee. And here's the other thing that everybody's starting to take notice of. Well, dang, this Stetson Bennett kid, he's actually playing pretty good. And you had to be really keeping up with the Georgia quarterback controversy that was going on back then to understand how weird and strange the situation was. JT Daniels missed at Arkansas.
That was about
game,
around the time that I really started
stated
watching
he was
college
gonna
football
miss
closely.
a couple of weeks, and he'll be back for the meat and potatoes of their schedule. And if they do make it to the SEC championship, he's going to be the starter. And what was happening was Georgia was cruising by in all these games like you see right here, so there was no need of Kirby Smart to insert JT Daniels not into the slightest of bits. But then it started to get to the point where Kirby Smart was like, well, wait a minute. We're winning all these games by 30 points with Stetson Bennett. Why should we change quarterbacks? We're hot with Bennett, so let's continue to roll with them. I remember talking about this back then, and some of you may remember this.
The fuck is this post that JT Daniels is doing?
Quarterback situation with Daniels, it was
teasing
awful.
that
It was
nigga.
stupid. I get it. Your offense was cruising with Bennett, but in my humble opinion, you got to play the better guy. And the better guy, no question about it, was Daniels. Long story short, though, Daniels, he gets healthy, but Kirby Smart's like, nope, we're sticking with Bennett. He's our guy. What happens next?
Bro,
Alabama.
imagine getting replaced because you can't stay healthy, bro. That's gotta suck.
Barely skids by Auburn. Nobody's giving them a shot, and they crushed Georgia and Stetson Bennett for the second straight time, 41-24. You know why Georgia lost this game? Yet again, sound like a broken record player here. From the previous year, quarterback play. That's it. Well, I said that's it. It also didn't help that Bryce Young and Jameson Williams completely torched their secondary. But you get my point. With Stetson Bennett having those two
I remember that game.
it really took Georgia out of the ball game. For some odd reason, even after that Bama game, Kirby decided to stick with Bennett heading into the playoff. Bennett plays great against Michigan, and as
it was their
know,
best
they beat
chance
Alabama
to win.
in a rematch, 33-18. That scores.
Yeah, bro, that shit had me
pick
heated
six.
in that
I'll be the first
national
person to
championship
tell you,
game.
Bennett impressed me for the first time in his career in that national championship game against Alabama. Why did he impress me? It's relatively simple. In the previous two matchups with Alabama, Nick Saban said, all right, Bennett, if you want your team to win, you got to go out there and beat us, and he couldn't. He failed to do so. He crumbled like a cookie under the pressure. In the championship game, though, Alabama was leading, I believe, early on in the fourth quarter, 18-13.
But we didn't, like, Bryce Young didn't have any more weapons because we lost Mechie in the SEC championship game, and then Jameson Williams tore his ACL in the national championship game. So Bryce Young was throwing to goddamn food line workers in this bit. Like, come on now.
Because Georgia could not run the ball. Bennett had to beat Alabama through the air, and he did it. I gave him his flowers back then, and I'll continue to give him his flowers till this day. That was a heck of a performance, a gutsy performance at that. The throws he was making against that Alabama secondary, they were top-notch, and they couldn't have been any better. Bennett, Kirby Smart, and that entire Georgia program finally got over the Alabama hump. But more importantly, not only did they get over the Alabama hump, they won a national championship. I got a feeling there's some Alabama and even Georgia fans watching this video thinking, well, I don't know about Georgia getting over the Alabama hump just due to it seems like Alabama still to this day has their number. That's a different conversation for a different day.
We beat them last year.
Continuing along, though, Bennett, he's a champion, and he announces to nobody's shock whatsoever, he's coming back in the 2022 season. At this point in time...
And I believe, wasn't that the last time they beat us, too? Like, come on now, bro. We're way better than Georgia. Let's keep it a buck. I don't give a fuck if they beat us in a national championship game. We're still better than them.
It's Bennett's ball team, and they're going to try to run it back. And not only did they attempt to run it back, they beat the living crap out of everybody that was in their way. Well, my apologies, almost everybody outside of Ohio State. I'll show you some of the scores right here. There's not too much to be said about this season because Bennett and Georgia, they dominated and there was zero drama. I still to this day don't think Bennett gets enough credit. That year he had in 2022, it was almost flawless. It was one of the best years I've ever seen out of a quarterback in the SEC. And I know my Stetson DoorDash Bennett haters aren't going to like that I'm giving him all this credit and flowers, and they never liked it when I did it in the years prior, but you got to come to terms with reality. This guy was easily one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, not the SEC, but the nation in 2022. And that's what's cool about having these guys that play college football for a long time, although with that extra year, it's getting a little ridiculous. But I do like seeing a guy who wasn't good early on progress and get better and better and better every single season.
Yeah, I guess like true underdog story.
Discipline and dedication, it can get you in this life. Like I was saying, though, Bennett and Georgia, they completely cruised through the season outside the Ohio State game. That game was crazy. Shout out to Ohio State's kicker for missing that final kick. And they TCU.
He missed that shit right as the clock struck midnight for the new year, bro.
Now that shit is that Ohio State game was arguably one of Bennett's best performances I've ever seen. He was pretty good against Alabama in that championship game, but against Ohio State,
the MHJ got hurt this game too,
the game over,
which was a big part.
34, 400
he wasn't
yards,
really doing that much.
1 INT, QBR
before
right
he got
at 75.
hurt.
The stat sheet though doesn't do it any justice. He was laying out some perfect passes. And it kind of sucks because C.J. Stroud played just as good, if not better, but it gets overshadowed due to Ohio State missing that final kick. When it's all said and done, though, you look up, the former walk-on, the quarterback that nobody wanted, is the MVP of the national championship game and a reigning back-to-back champ. Things are looking great for him. They're looking fantastic. And the conversation has quickly switched from, oh, can this guy be the starter of a national championship contender to, wait a minute. Is he a legit NFL prospect? I get it. It's crazy, but let's take a look at these numbers he put up in 2022. Completed 68% of his passes, had 4,127 passing yards, with 27 touchdowns to only 7 INTs. Also got to throw in there that 2022
crazy number
season,
of touchdowns, but this is
touchdowns.
pretty good touchdown-interception ratio.
Sure, but so was Bryce Young, so was Kyler Murray, so was Johnny Manziel. The bottom line is, if you can play, teams are willing to overlook some things. Leading up into that 2023 NFL draft, unfortunately for Mr. Stetson Bennett here, this is where our story takes a drastic And I mean a drastic turn. The breaking news came out. I'll show it to you right here. This
we
was
go.
the official report back then. Georgia quarterback Stetson
Public
Bennett was reportedly
intoxication.
arrested early Sunday morning in Dallas on a public intoxication charge. And what he did, according to these reports back then, even to this day, it's head-scratching to say the least. Quote-unquote, the 25-year-old, referring to Bennett here, was taken into custody around 6 a.m.
Damn,
to reports of a
25,
man
bro. This
banging
nigga's 25 years old entering the draft,
on
bro.
doors
Come
of
on,
Buffalo
this
Bay.
nigga's pushing
Shot back
30.
away in
Nigga about to
Old
reach
East
unk
Dallas.
territory.
Yeah, so that happened. I get it when people get, I guess you say, a little tipsy, they drink a little too much, they do crazy things, and they act a certain way. But could you imagine cruising down the street and it's 3 or 4 a.m., and you see some crazy person banging on the doors, and he turns his head and you look at him? It's freaking Stetson Bennett, a guy who just won a national championship, or back-to-back championships at that. Here's the official video footage from him being released from jail. Matt, roll a clap.
Matt, Rodcliffe.
What were you doing in Dallas, Stetson?
At the
That's
time,
crazy.
we almost had to assume, right, this is going to affect his draft stock. Even if it doesn't affect it a lot, it might affect it a little bit. Because when you're a fringe day 2 or day 3 guy, you really don't have any room for error. Fortunately enough, though, for Bennett, as bad as the situation looked, many teams out here and many people in general were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Number one, he hasn't had a prior history of stuff like this happen. And number two, he's coming off of back-to-back championships. He was out partying. Did he drink a little too much? Yeah, probably. But he just got carried away. He's living his best life. Am I condoning or excusing his actions? Absolutely not. I'm just telling you what people were saying back then. Fast forward time here in the NFL draft, he got selected higher than what some people thought he'd go. He got picked up in the 4th round with the 128th overall pick by the Los Angeles Rams. I was tweeting about this when it happened. I thought it was a fantastic, and I mean an absolutely fantastic pick. Great situation.
Everybody thought that was going to be Stafford's replacement for the future.
And the Rams. Number one, the Rams needed a backup.
Could he still be?
Number two, I think Bennett
maybe.
is perfect backup in the NFL. He looked good in the practices. He looked good all throughout the offseason. But right when the official season start, he got put on the non-football illness list. Or some people
Is
like
he
to
even
call it
still on the
reserve list.
roster?
Either or, it's the same thing. You see
Let me
that and
check.
you're like, well, wait a minute. What's going on? Did he get hurt? And no. He didn't get hurt. Stetson Bennett never came out with a public statement. His family didn't. The only thing that was ever said was this quote right here from Sean McVay when he was asked about it. I understand you have a job to do.
Yeah, he's
but there
still
are
in the
certain things
roster,
that are a lot
bro.
bigger and more important. That's all we had, and that's all we knew back then. There was a lot of speculation floating around, but you really didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what was going on here.
Yeah, he's still
Your
on the
boy Bennett
roster.
had a drinking problem. Every single person you come into contact with every day is fighting a battle you know nothing about, and this just so happened to be Stetson Bennett's battle. Goes on being said, terrible situation. You hate to see it. You hate to hear about it. But the last thing he should have been worrying about back then was the game of football. He had to turn his life around. He had to fix this major problem. Or maybe it wasn't major. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it could have got to that point. You get what I'm trying to say. There was some hope that he might return back to the team at the midway point of the season, but that didn't ever
Nah, he was at
happen. He missed
practice
the entire
2 weeks
2023
ago.
season, which was the most
But I
recent
just
one
when
for
I
the
just
Rams,
searched
and
up his
nobody knew
name
where
and
he
shit.
was at or what he was doing. I got to give him, his family, and that entire Rams organization a ton of credit because they did an outstanding job of keeping this on the low. They weren't giving
not
out
for
any
real.
information whatsoever, and rightfully so, because that's
Because, like, after the start of the season, I didn't really hear anything about Stetson Bennett at all until
I'm
now.
extremely pleased and happy to announce Bennett is officially back with the Rams, and he's ready to go.
Good to
this
see, though.
announcement came not too long ago at the end of May, and when Bennett was asked about the
Bro,
situation,
what the fuck? Is this the same guy?
all he stated was,
Oh my gosh. Yo. Bro look like he been going through it, not gonna lie. Bro needs to shape up. Bro. I hope he doing
he
okay.
wanted to keep the situation, quote unquote, in house. That's awesome. You
'Cause
love
he
to
look,
see
he's
it.
going
And
through a
to
lot
Bennett,
right
if
now.
Somehow, some way, seeing this video, wish you
Damn.
the best of luck, my man, and I hope you see a ton of success. I'm a firm believer in health is wealth. Your health is the most important thing in this life because without it, nothing else matters. You can have all the money in the world, but if you got a scratchy throat, the only thing you want is for that throat to be healed. Whether it's mental health, physical health, it doesn't matter. That should be a high priority in your life. It also takes a man to own up to it and say, you know what, I got a problem and I need to fix this before it gets crazy. Because it's normal for men to not try to fix these problems because that's not the quote-unquote manly thing to do. We should tough it out. But I got to give Bennett a ton of credit. He put his pride and ego aside. He said, you know what? I need to fix this ASAP. And I'm going to, you know what? Let's do this. Clap it up to Stetson Bennett in the comment section. He did disappear for a little bit. It was a mysterious disappearance at that, but he's back. Let's talk about this, though, and let's address this.
Good to see him back,
What's
though.
his chances of having a successful NFL career? Well,
I
when it
mean,
comes
bro
to
is
football-
already he's about to turn 30 the next couple years or so, because he's what, like 26 now? Because he was 25 when he was drafted. Bro was 26 now, he's pushing 30. And I understand that you know what I'm saying, quarterback longevity in the league can last till like, bro, what, their mid 40s or whatever. You know what I'm saying, with Tom Brady and shit. But bro,
football abilities, I'd like to assume with what he's dealt in this past year, he hasn't
like
lost
niggas
any of his mechanics,
only his
and he still can
second
play the game.
season.
And when I say play the game, I mean play it at a high level like he was playing when he was at Georgia in 2022. When I say play the game, I mean play it at a high level like he was playing when he was at Georgia in 2022.
What's
To
he
me,
doing,
my view
nigga?
on him hasn't changed, not even to the slice of bits. I think his
Oh
ceiling
my
in the NFL
gosh.
is a backup quarterback. I do
Yeah.
also think he could be a solid bridge quarterback if you do need a guy, but it's going to be interesting to see if he does lose some of his stuff, because not playing for a year, I don't care who you are, you're going to be a little rusty. So we'll see what happens. The great part about his story is
100%,
it's still
bro.
ongoing, so
Excuse
he
me.
can continue to write it, for better or for worse. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts on all this down below. But Roman,
Hey man, what do you guys think? Bro, but Stetson Bennett, he looked a little, you know what I'm saying, a little off. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's just because he needs a shape up or something, but he looks like he's going through a lot right now. But hope everything gets better for him, bro. I'm saying, hoping nothing for the best for this guy. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once you guys like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Turn on post notifications, get notified whenever I drop another banger video. We're on the road to 200 subs, and we get there for more banger NFL content like this. So without further ado, I'm out. Gang!